Hey everyone, welcome to my third episode of the Empowering Musicians podcast. And I'm Michael Manley, an orchestral and theater pit musician, arts advocate, labor organizer, and writer. And my mission is to empower current and aspiring working musicians and artists by providing them with all the outside the practice room learning and skills and tools that they need to succeed. Today, I really wanted to go deeper into something that I talked about in my first outing, which is our mindset and what makes a healthy mindset as a performing artist. It's really something that we need to practice as much as we practice our instruments. And I told the story about my problems with that artist mindset, what I'm calling an artist mindset, which really is that laser focus on perfectionism and being the best that we kind of get instilled in us as musicians. Athletes face similar issues where they're so driven on performance and success that we sometimes lose perspective. And all of those striving for success and all of that is really based on external reward. And I talked a lot about how that external validation for your worth can be really toxic. And so there's nothing wrong with wanting to be our best and wanting to do our best, which is part of what this field is about. But we have to keep that in perspective, and we have to understand that our instruments and our music making or our athletic goals or whatever our pursuits are what we do, and they're not who we are. So there's a lot of content and research and coaching available in peak performance and other types of mental training around peak performance. And that mindset training is not what I'm talking about today. This performance mindset is key for success in any field that involves, competitive work, whether it's athletics or whether it's taking auditions or other types of competition. But it's really focused on what and how, just like that artist mindset I referred to. It's focused on what we do and how we do it. The mindset work I'm referring to is not this. It is really focused not on the what or the how, but on the why. At a young age, we fall in love with a piece of music or the sound of a particular instrument, and we decide that we have to make that sound, we have to play that instrument. Or maybe we had a violin or a piano at our fingers before we even got to first grade. Because our parents wanted us to be fluent in music, hours, weeks, and years of practice later, we're focused on that success mindset. And if we're lucky to attain that success, we rarely take the time to ask ourselves why we're doing this. So I know it seems obvious, right? Because I love it. But many love music without pursuing it as a career. And a career can involve heavy travel, a crazy schedule, sporadic employment, a ton of rejection. And it's not the fattest paycheck often for artists. Yet so many of us pursue it. And because I love it doesn't really get us to where we need to go as far as our why. The why, of course, is our purpose. And I hope I'm wrong, but I would say most of us probably went through several years of school and never had a conversation with our teachers about why are you playing the trumpet, or why all these hours to perfect the cello? What's your purpose? So we have many conversations around whether or not likely to succeed based on our performance level. But those, again, are these artist mindset conversations that are around our what and our our how. Would we make it? Would we be better off channeling our passion into teaching? This is not the same as asking why we're doing any of this. So what are typically some of the whys that we've come up with? Well, to be the best, to perform with the Chicago Symphony, to be the Itzhak Perlman of the saxophone. So these are goals. These are not our purpose. They're outcomes and they are external. They're not, they're what we want, but they are not who we are. And there's nothing wrong with having goals, except maybe to be the best, because you can't measure that. And it's a terrible goal. It's chasing perfection. And since no one is perfect, it just is a recipe for your ego to attack you and for you to be miserable at your work. Better to think about doing our best versus an outcome of being our best. Doing our best is different. It's much different than thinking that I want to be the best. So if our purpose is not a goal, what is our purpose? I would argue that it is who we are and the impact that we strive to make with our art. So my purpose used to be goals, right? I came out of school. I had the same drive to win a big orchestra job, to win a competition as either a soloist or a chamber musician, to get those kind of external rewards for my work. And with those goals, what I did was who I was. So if you listen to my first episode, you remember that I talked about my story. And in an instant, all of that was taken away from me. And you can go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. But essentially, my jaw was broken. I questioned everything. I was temporarily thought I may never be able to play again. So all of those purposes that I had to win that big job, or to win a solo competition, all of that was temporarily gone. And I really had to rethink, especially not knowing if I would come back and to what level. And thankfully I did come back and I did have a career, but it made me really rethink my whole purpose about what I was doing. And my purpose changed. It was no longer all of this set of goals. I was always a second horn player. So, and when you're a second horn player, your goal is really to make your section and the people that you're playing around sound their best. And so I decided that my purpose was to make others sound good when I was playing, and that I was serving the world through music by offering performances where I placed myself in the role of making others sound good. So that's a much different goal than playing a piece perfectly or being the best. It's a much different purpose. And I just want to say that in my work as an arts and labor advocate, I've never seen very many people that got let go from employment because their playing was not strong enough. I've seen several examples of people who lost their employment or weren't rehired because their attachment to their own perfection created a toxic workplace. So I'll give you my most extreme example, and it had to do with a Broadway show. I was on tour, and I got a call from a drummer who said, I think I'm about to be let go, and I thought I should reach out to you. And I was like, well, what's going on here? at the time, the contract that musicians touring were working under did not have a lot of job security. So it was fairly easy for an employer to let go of somebody. Since then, we've strengthened that contract, I'm happy to say. But in this moment, I asked what was going on. And the first thing out of the drummer's mouth was, well, the conductor's tempos are all wrong. And I thought, well, that's creative. So I said, tell me more. And he explained to me that the conductor's tempos were all wrong and that he knew what all the tempos were supposed to be for all of the productions of the show all over the world, and that he knew for a fact that the conductor's tempos were wrong and his tempos were right. And I kind of invited him to think about the fact that correcting the conductor was probably not in his job description, that his job was, in fact, to follow the conductor. And that clearly wasn't happening. And so I kept explaining to him that maybe that wasn't his job. And he kept explaining to me, you don't understand. My tempos are right and the conductor's wrong. And so that was my most extreme example of somebody. And that person was let go of that opportunity. And it's the most extreme example I can think of somebody who was so deep into their perfectionist mindset that they lost the entire perspective, right? So if that musician had the mindset of making others sound good around him, maybe he would have had a completely different experience, right? He may have been able to more constructively deal with the situation that was causing him concern and saved his job. So this perfection and this artist mindset, if it's not really kept in balance by like a healthy purpose, can really get us into trouble. So think about what your purpose is in making music. And check yourself. If your purpose is, I want to win a principal job in an orchestra, ask yourself, is that a goal or is that a purpose? And then even if you attain that goal, what is your purpose? Why are you doing that? This is a really healthy exercise, and I think it's something that we should work on and practice as it's going to inform how we approach our music making, and it's going to be mentally and spiritually much more healthy for us. If we go to the practice room with a lot of anxiety because we're really worried about the one passage that's given us so much trouble, and we approach it with that very that anxious ego mindset of I want to be perfect, versus going into the practice room saying, I'm going to serve music today and I'm going to do the best I can with what I have, and that's my purpose, right? My purpose isn't to be perfect, it's to serve music. There were two things that happened, actually, I think on the same day, but I had a story that popped up in my feed that I'd written for the International Musician, and it was a profile of my friend and colleague, Kay Ragsdale, who sadly passed away several years ago. And I had reposted this story about Kay, and it popped up in my newsfeed, and I was rereading it, and Kay she was essentially a musical mystic. She was the only musician I've encountered who had no ego attachment to what she did. She was just an amazingly accomplished musician and extremely dedicated, and had removed the ego entirely from her work. And she had a quote in the story about the Asian flutes. She played all these many different flutes, from pan pipes to Asian flutes to Western flutes. And she played on a show called Miss Saigon for years, and also on The Lion King, which has a very famous multi-world flute book. And she was discussing the Asian flutes in particular, and she said, that with the Asian flutes, you are taught that the air is sacred and only to be used for your best efforts. And I thought that so embodied her purpose and her mindset, that she approached her work that way, that what she was doing was sacred and that she had to make sure that she was giving her best efforts in her work. And she was just a really wonderful colleague because of that. I also went to a memorial service yesterday for a good friend and colleague that I played The Lion King with here in Las Vegas. And he was one of our section, one of the three horns in our section. And what was struck me about his memorial was that so many people were talking about their experiences with him. He was an avid hiker and birder. He spent many days and weeks at national parks counting and researching birds. And he just loved nature. And it was really striking to me because what I remembered from that experience and thinking about my friend Kay was that these musicians, their legacy was not what they played. Yes, we had memories of some great performances of theirs, but their legacy was really who they were while they were making music. And I think that's really what our purpose is. It's really who we are when we're making music. And that's our legacy. That's what people remember. It's much richer and it's much more impactful than just saying at the end of your career, I wanted to be the best X player in the world, and that's what I got, right? So I really invite everyone to think about what is your purpose and why are you doing what you're doing? And check yourself that it's not just a goal, right? Because our purpose is bigger than a goal, and our purpose is really more internal. Goals are external, right? I want to achieve this. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need those goals. We need to work on our peak performance, mental training. All of that is important. But have a purpose in what you're doing that is who you are and that is the legacy that you want to leave and the impact that you want to make on the world. I want to thank everyone for listening today, and I look forward to coming to you in the future. I have some exciting guests planned for next time. And again, think about your purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, and not just the things you want to accomplish in your career. Talk to you soon. Take care.